I do have a question. Um, will um, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen ever make a Super Bowl appearance on the teams that they're on? Will Josh Allen make a Super Bowl appearance on the Bills? And will uh, Lamar Jackson make a Super Bowl appearance on the Ravens? Um, and should they, should more quarterbacks actually, not just those two, but should other quarterbacks um, ask to be traded? Should Dak Prescott ask to be traded? Should Joe Burrow ask to be traded? And hear me out before before you tune me out. Hear me out. Um, and then you can also take like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. Should they be asking to be traded? And so here's what I'm going with that. Um, you've seen quarterbacks like Sam Darnold, you know, go from the Vikings or go to the Vikings. Played pretty well there, and then he decided to go to Seattle, and he wins a Super Bowl. Um, and then you have, Baker Mayfield. He didn't do very good in the Browns, goes to a few, other teams, but then he found a home in the Buccaneers with the Buccaneers. Um, you see Sam Bradford, and he goes, from Detroit to the LA Rams, and he wins a Super Bowl. Um, Jared Goff, he went from the Rams to Detroit, and he's been making the playoffs. He's been doing better. There's just been, quarterback after quarterback that have gone to different teams and just played better. Now, not saying that Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, not saying any of those quarterbacks are bad. They're not bad. I'm not saying that Dak Prescott is bad, but what if they could go to a different team that brought them to their best? See, that's where I'm going with this. That's what I'm saying. Is what if Lamar Jackson, what if he's being held back? What if Josh Allen is being, like, how you're putting a puzzle together and you find two pieces that seem like they fit, but they're maybe just a little tight or maybe a little loose. They don't exactly fit. They're not the exact perfect fit. Well, that's what I'm saying. Likewise, what if Baltimore, what if Cincinnati, what if Buffalo is, what if it's a good fit, but just not the best fit? What if there's teams that would make a better fit for Lamar Jackson, for Josh Allen, for Joe Burrow? And I'm not, trying to knock the teams that they're on either, because obviously the teams that they are on, they're a good fit. they're working out, great. They're still, playing really good football on those teams. But, you look at Michael Jordan and you look at Tom Brady. Those two guys did everything. They did it all. Tom Brady, he didn't just win MVP. He won Super Bowls. He didn't just win Super Bowls. He was Super Bowl MVP. And he did everything. Same with Michael Jordan. He didn't just win 6 championships and nothing else. He won MVP. He won championships. He was the MVP champion, champion MVP, finals MVP. So he was all of those things. And then again, Peyton Manning, he didn't win as many Super Bowls as Tom Brady, but he has 2 Super Bowls. He has, I do believe at the very least, 1 Super Bowl MVP. And he's also gotten MVP rewards. And so, and that's the thing with Peyton Manning. He's, when it comes to Super Bowls, he's 2-1. 2-1 in Super Bowls, in Super Bowl appearances. Michael Jordan, he's, 6 finals, 6 champions. And so, that's the thing. Joe Burrow, he's been to a Super Bowl, but he's never won a Super Bowl. Same with, not same with Dak Prescott, because he's never been to a Super Bowl. But, you can say, Lamar Jackson, he's never been to a Super Bowl. Josh Allen has never been to a Super Bowl. And going back to Joe Burrow, he's been there, but he's never won a Super Bowl. And so, what should these quarterbacks do? Should they be asking to be traded? Now, here's one, catch that you do have to, think about and understand: cap space. Do teams have enough, cap space to take a quarterback like Lamar Jackson, like for a trade or whatever? Because here's an interesting thought, is what if Baltimore swapped quarterbacks with the Dallas Cowboys? Now, I know what you're thinking, because no way is Dak Prescott on the same level as Lamar Jackson. However, would Dak Prescott playing in Baltimore, would it be a better fit? Would he, because here's something else that you have to think about, is locker rooms. There was once upon a time you were a quarterback, you didn't really have to worry about the locker room. But now you live in an era where you can go on a team and the locker room just does not like you. The vibe in the locker room clearly says that we don't want you here. And so, and you can see the difference. And actually, Sam Darnold actually talked about it. He didn't say what locker room. He wouldn't say what locker room. He was trying to protect that team, I do believe. But even himself, there was an interview that I remember he did say that there were locker rooms that didn't want him there. And so you can tell the difference going to a locker room that wanted him there. We got to see what happened. And then the same with Baker Mayfield. Obviously, the locker room from the Buccaneers wanted him. And so I think that's a reason why he found success. And then with Jared Goff and, Jared Goff and Sam Bradford as well, those quarterbacks, found the locker. And I'm not saying that the locker room doesn't want Joe Burrow. I'm not saying that the locker room doesn't want Lamar Jackson or doesn't want, Josh Allen. But so that's really not the case for those quarterbacks. I do believe that the locker rooms for those three quarterbacks, they want those quarterbacks there. But it doesn't, or is the organization doing enough? Because, it's just year in and year out. Buffalo does really good regular season, then they lose somewhere in the playoffs, maybe not first round, maybe not second round, but they eventually get kicked out of the playoffs, they lose. And so it's just what can happen to get a quarterback like Josh Allen to the Super Bowl. And I know that the Buffalo Bills have tried several different things. So, but and then there's salary cap. But just thinking for a moment, what would happen if Dallas, let's say Dallas did reach a deal with the Baltimore Ravens, and you saw Lamar Jackson going to, because here's something that Lamar Jackson has never. He's had a good offense, sure, but you look at the and there's good receivers. I'm not knocking any receivers from Baltimore. There's really good receivers, but if those receivers go elsewhere, they're second and third. They're not really elsewhere. They're not really true, number one receivers. They're not Jamar Chase, right? They're not, him. And they're not, somebody, if they go anywhere else, they're and they have, I do believe where Lamar Jackson has made them into superstars. So if they were on any other team, like you think about if those receivers were with Dallas, would Dallas be as good? Right? Would Dak Prescott be as good? And so here's the thing. I think there are some quarterbacks that are better because they have better receivers. Now, I would still put Baltimore's offense over Dallas, because you do have Lamar Jackson and you have a better running back. And then their tight end is better as well. And just as a team, they're able to play better as a team. But think about it for a second. What if Lamar Jackson was with Dallas and the two really big receivers that are bigger names than the receivers from Baltimore? Like, how much better would Lamar Jackson be? And that's where I'm want to leave you with a thought like that.